Well, Arkansas defeats the number one team in the country in overtime, 80-78. I'm Daniel Price. That's Jacob Price. We're going to break it all down. This is Arkansas basketball recap. You know, Jake, I actually had to watch this game a little later recorded because I had something going on, and you were up all night doing a work project. And, kind of thought like, well, maybe we'll have to wake up first thing in the morning and record it. But then when I finished the game, I knew that you were going to still be awake because you knew we were going to have to talk about it immediately as Arkansas gets, I don't know, like the biggest win they've had. I mean, you have tournament wins that are really big, obviously, but I mean, this is as big a win as they've had in the regular season in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like right now, as we're recording this, it's 2 hours. The game's been over for about 2 hours. It's about 10:15. And that almost feels like, holy cow, it's been a long time. You know what I mean? Like you wanted to get out and talk about it the second it was over,
Dude,
So
it felt like, I mean, first of all, Arkansas came out from the jump ready to scrap. I mean, Arkansas, Auburn is a physical team. They're a big team, and you're going to have to play that way to beat them, especially for a team like Arkansas who doesn't shoot the ball exceptionally well, and like they want to play like that. And man, it was a fight, and a fight that I think is easy to. They had several times where they could have given up on it. They could have let that go of the rope, and it just never happened. I mean, Arkansas just fought and fought and fought.
Yeah, I thought because like we've talked about this whole time, Arkansas's games all come, not all, but the majority of them come down to a pretty close game in the last 2 minutes, and then it's just a matter of somebody making a couple of plays, and that's how they have, the majority of their games have gone in this winning streak. And when they hit that, when they got it, they were up by 2, and then that guy hit that 3. I thought, well, that's it. We need they made the back-to-back. It was back and forth, 2-point game, tied game, 2-point game. And there in the last minute, they managed to hit consecutive shots, get 2 stops, and get up by 5. And I was like, that's it. They made the 2 plays. That's probably the end of the game, and honestly, it's kind of a fog in my head now that the overtime sort of erased. I honestly can barely remember even how we did come back. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, that game was, I actually, and I think I said the whole time, I actually thought we had a good chance to win, but the game played out a lot different than I would have imagined. Like I actually haven't looked at the stat sheet, but I couldn't believe the way we were getting out rebounded. And I know Auburn's good, but we were having some trouble finding bodies on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. And
we got out rebounded 60-42, which, by the way, the first thing that jumps out of that is there was a lot of rebounds to get. And the reason for that was we shot 34% and they shot 37%. So there's a lot of rebounds to get. And I mean, look,
it's because of good defense. I mean, just great defense on both sides.
Great defense. Yeah, great. I mean, that was. I mean, Musselman is a genius for the way he came out in that game.
Deciding to let them shoot.
Yeah, like we're going to play man, except for whoever's guarding your post man is not ever leaving the post, and that's just how we're going to do it. And we're not going to let you dribble drive, and it worked. I mean, especially in the first half, it worked. I mean, they could not get anything going, and you'll live if your post guy's going to hit 2 threes. That I don't care. If what you want to do is dribble drive, and I can take that away, I'll give up 2. You can have 2.
Yeah, it always scares me when teams try that. Teams try it even against us a lot. But leaving shooters open, even if they're not like high percentage shooters, always scares me, because it goes against that. Don't let people get in the flow.
Mhm.
And the last thing you want is for a guy
Unless the
to
flow they want to get into is getting in the lane and getting in the paint, and like,
no, that's true. But I mean, even when you go to the free throw line, they always say when you see the ball go through the basket, when you get clean looks, and especially the 3-point, which is the white man's dunk. Well, not that there was any white guys, but I'm just saying, like, it gets the crowd energized. Not that they didn't have a crowd, but what I'm saying is when you let guys shoot threes, if a couple of those goes down, that can have a ripple effect and get the flow going. You know what I mean? It scares me to let guys have open looks, but it did appear to be a good strategy, and it worked.
yeah, and I think it just depends. I mean, their two guys he was comfortable with. I mean, you looked at their percentages and he just said, I'm willing to do it. They don't want to do it. He's making them do something that they don't want to do. They're uncomfortable doing it. They don't want to do it. Now Bruce Pearl made some adjustments in the second half where he got some guys and he started using those guys as screeners, which is a good idea if you're guys in the paint, because then there's no one to help on that screen. But it's what got Arkansas a lead. They needed that lead because when Jalen Williams got that second foul with 7 minutes left in the first half and had to sit the rest of the time, I was nervous about it, and I was nervous about it for a good reason, because they didn't put a basket in the hole the entire time he sat on the bench, which is not a coincidence.
It's funny. This game is it's definitely a roller coaster. So like it feels right now exhilarating. I mean, I'm like jittery and excited about them winning that, and then watching how ecstatic the fans were and the players were, and even Musselman. That's as pleased as I've ever seen him look after a game. And but honestly, it was a very frustrating and just, hand-wringing game to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, if you like defense, it was good, but even still, there was plenty of things to be extremely frustrated with. We took some bad shots. We made some bad passes. We made some really dumb plays on offense, and we didn't find bodies on offense and defensive rebounds so many times that
and
that
I don't
was
think,
like,
and there's no way it was not an effort issue. Like, because I mean, you could, like, there's no way you can watch that game and say Arkansas is just not playing hard enough. They're not crashing hard enough. It's none of that stuff. One of it is that, dude, Kessler is a freaking problem.
he's really a problem.
That dude's just a problem. Like, I don't know what you can do. I mean,
it was taking like 2.5 guys to box him out.
And he was still getting his hand on the ball like someone else would go get it. He was tipping that side. That was a lot of it. That's a lot of what was going on. And he was drawing so much attention that you were like not blocking out. Everyone's panicking, trying to figure out where he's at, and then other guys are crashing in, other guys are slipping through. And so,
I don't think it was like they weren't trying to box out. It was that they were spending so much effort on defense that they were just turned around when the ball went up, because they're just having to help. Everybody was, by the time the ball went up, not most, but like a large portion of the time, everybody was out of position because they were all chasing somebody. You know what I mean? And it's hard to box out when you are guarding 3 different people on the same possession. And then some of it was, there was one or two times, or not one or two, there was a couple of times where I was pulling my hair out going, dude,
yeah,
like they were maybe ball watching or just let a guy run in there. And I mean, they had so many second chances. I honestly can't figure out how we won the game, really.
Well, we got killed on the rebounds like that, but I'll tell you how we won the game.
Well, and they shot a higher percentage than us.
Yeah, we turned it. What happened is we turned them over 19 times.
But we had a lot of turnovers too. I mean, how many times did we turn them?
11.
Okay, so there's part of it, and then the free throw line, I'm guessing, is the rest of it.
So they had 19 turnovers. We had 11. They shot. They were. Let's see. They were 8 of 17 from the free throw line. That's 47%. And we were 26 of 32.
That's the game. I mean, that is the secret in the game right there. Because like if you told me we were going to get out rebounded by 20 and they were going to shoot a higher percentage, even marginally higher, because the one way you overcome getting out rebounded is you shoot really well and you shoot a high percentage
and you get more shots.
Yeah. And if you told me that we were going to shoot a low percentage their defense was going to hold us to a lower field goal percentage than our defense was going to hold them to, and they were going to out rebound us, and they were going to have like 25 points on offensive rebounds, offensive second chance points that turn into more points.
I would have thought we were about to lose by 20.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I can't tell you how.
But if you told me we went to the line 30 times and we turned them over 19 times, I'd be like,
Yeah, well, and dude, there's nothing more frustrating than at the end of the game, and this happened a lot with Mike Anderson teams. I mean, I don't know if it was his fault, but it seemed like I remember the Mike Anderson days going, does he not practice free throws? Like, does he never make them practice? I don't know if it was his fault or it was just a coincidence that he recruited there for a couple of years, got a low percentage team free throw shooting, but there's nothing more frustrating.
Not this team, though, dude. 26-32 is 81% as a team. When you shot, that's amazing.
And on the floor there, you feel good about almost anybody going to the line. I mean, Tony, Note, Williams. I mean, Williams is the lowest percentage shooter out there, and it's still
he's still clutch. He still makes them,
and he was clutch.
Yeah,
although
clutch.
They only missed 2 there in that little, or maybe they missed 3.
I think Jabari Smith got freaking knocked down 2 just pull up threes because he's 6'10" and looking like Kevin Durant out there.
Like, I know. I was like, would you just
man,
lose already? You know what I mean? Like, stop it.
But okay, so we're kind of all over the place here, dude. I do want to say that that JD Note is such a stud. I mean, you're talking about a guy that played 41 minutes. He drops 28 points. And dude, that guy, and he had to work for all of those points.
I don't know how he does it. I'm exhausted from watching it.
And was crazy on defense. Dude, that steal that he had where he just like saw like the guy turn his back and said, I'm just taking. That's such a heady play, and it takes a burst of energy. Like, how are you not exhausted, dude? Like it. Is there anyone in the country that's playing harder than JD Note, like for every minute that he's on the floor because of how hard he plays on both ends?
And that's why I like Bruce Pearl's philosophy of resting all his guys and giving them prolonged stretches to rest their legs and then going into overtime. I was beside myself nervous because I was like, our legs are going to go. We're not going to be able to hit shots. You know what I mean? Like it's like I said, I was exhausted watching them play.
Mm-hmm.
And
by the way, Note's the player of the game, in case anyone was wondering.
He is, but at the same time, this is one where like the game ball goes to the team because there's nobody played poorly.
The fans in Bud Walton Arena get the game ball.
Yeah, I mean, but seriously, like everybody had a moment that was very important. I mean, I thought Likes didn't play much, but when he came in, he played some important minutes. I mean, he took a couple of bad shots that I didn't really like, but he got some steals and he played very hard. All you could expect from him.
And he played 17 minutes. He played 17 minutes. I realize there's an overtime period in there too, but so he played. And then I thought Devo played good.
I was gonna say Devo's dude because when he came in, it felt like we couldn't find any mojo. No, and when we were standing around, it looked like everybody was tired. It looks like they were ball watching. Everybody was hoping somebody else would do it. And then, I mean, those shots that he made there in that little period to keep them from getting a 5 or 6 point lead were humongous.
Yeah, and Devo played 32 minutes. He didn't shoot a ton. He was 4 of 8, was 2 of 3 from the 3-point line. Those are huge shots.
Humongous.
So he had 10 points. He had 4 rebounds. He had 5 steals.
He played really good defense.
Yeah, 5. That's a lot of steals, man. 5 steals. That's great. Note, of course, like a maniac, has 28 points, goes 11 of 14 from the line, has 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and he has 3 steals and 4 blocks. What a maniac.
Mm-hmm.
He's the point guard. He's got 3 steals and 4 blocks to go along with 28 points. That's absurd. And Jalen Williams, what Jalen Williams does, he was great. He had 13 points, 11 rebounds, and dude, those 11 rebounds, I know we got out rebounded, but man, we needed all 11 of those, and those were hard to get rebounds.
Yep. And then, like I said, Amude had moments where he was humongous, and he played some pretty good defense on the ball. I mean, he moved his feet and kept them from getting around him. And I mean, obviously, Tony did what Tony always does, and what is essential is just scrap. You know,
Tony ends up with 14 points, and he ends up with 10 boards. Those are big. I mean, so him and Jalen Williams both have double-digit. There were so many rebounds to get in this game, is what was crazy. Because
Tony played great defense on the perimeter as well.
Played great defense. And honestly, like, it felt like a lot of turnovers, but I think it was more like the shots. But against Auburn, I can live with 11 turnovers.
Yeah, well, especially because I mean, I'm guessing that a large portion of those came in the first half. It felt like we went on a little sloppy run there when Jalen went out, and
they didn't turn our turnovers into fast break points the way we did a lot of theirs.
No, they turned their offensive rebounds into points, but not so much our transition defense was really good.
It was, yeah. I mean, this is how you know they got so many more shots, dude. They were 30 of 80. So they took 80 shots. They were 30 of 80, which is 37.5%. Great defense, but that's a lot of shots. We were 23 of 67. I mean, you are talking about them getting 13 more shots than us. It's a lot of shots. You know?
It is a lot of shots.
And so
it's a lot more shots you have to defend. You know what I mean? A lot of more possessions that you have to box out on. Like, all of that is accumulative.
Yeah, it is. And so, you know, I thought also that one of the things that happened is whenever there was those bad shots, though, that were long rebounds, or if we did turn the ball over, our transition defense was spectacular. I mean, like, if there was a lot, like, you know, someone jacked up a shot and it went long, most of the time, like, they get that long rebound and you can get some runouts. Not tonight. I mean, our guys were getting back, and honestly, our guys were getting back in ways that their guys weren't.
Yeah, and that's actually that's another reason why I can't believe the conditioning of those guys, because, you know, the whole game is exhausting, but there's nothing like when the other team gets the ball and is running ahead and you have to go into your full-blown 40-yard dash trying to make the combine number sprint to get back. Like, that fatigues your whole system in a way that the, you know, mid to upper level exertion doesn't. That full-blown, now I'm running like I'm on a track to catch up, and they had to do it a bunch of times. That's why I don't know how they do it. I mean, I know they're young, but good Lord, dude.
No, I mean, I think, and the Musselman doesn't care. Like, Musselman is the exact opposite of Bruce Pearl, where he's like, I ain't resting anybody in overtime.
I can't believe the way, like, even the timeouts. I've never seen a coach, and I actually would like to hear him explain this philosophy. I mean, it works for him, but, like, he never calls timeouts.
No.
Ever. At the end of the game, I'm looking at him like, we've got all our timeouts still.
Yeah, he doesn't.
And it's not like he's one of those guys that's like a greedy timeout guy where he's like, I'm going to need these at the end of the game, and I'm going to call a bunch of them in the last minute. He never calls timeouts, even when he's got them all.
Yeah.
I mean, unless, like, obviously you can't inbound the ball or something, but he almost never calls them to give his guys rest or just to take a break or any of that.
Yeah. No, he doesn't do it. No, it is wild, man. I tell you this, Musselman, I don't need any, like, whatever schools are more elite than, you know, fortunately, most of those schools just hired guys, but I don't need anyone's coach retiring and then coming after my dude. Musselman is great, dude. He is. I mean, I didn't realize this. I should know this, but when they said that Musselman over the last 3 years is the winningest coach in the SEC, I didn't know. I was like, well, that almost makes me scared. Like, he's won more games in the SEC in the last 3 years than anyone. Like,
right, you're like, are the Lakers going to come hand him a bag of money? Or,
yeah, dude. Like, so I don't know what that buyout is, but, like, just jack it up to something unrealistic. Get the Waltons on the phone and say, we need this buyout to be so absurd that, like, no one can. You got to protect this man at all costs. Okay, that would be the worst thing ever. But not that I think he's unhappy here at all. Like he seems like he loves it here, and so that's great. And like one of the things that I just noticed in this game, and obviously you know this, but Jalen Williams taking charges is such a huge part of what this team does every game, because it does a couple of things. It gets someone in foul trouble. It's essentially a turnover.
Mhm.
And it is so frustrating. Like you want to see, like you watch that game and tell me Jalen Williams at some point wasn't in the head of every guy that was trying to drive the ball in there. They were totally freaked out every time they go in the lane. You can't go in there all fly off one foot and like just try to, like, you're scared to death to do it, especially after the second time he draws the charge. And
Yeah,
it's a psychological torment that he's giving teams.
yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's like it's almost like an adaptation that he's made for not being the bounciest big man or the biggest big man. You know, he's I mean, he's plenty big and he's plenty bouncy, but he's not like Serge Ibaka or one of these guys that just like,
He's not even Daniel Gafford.
yeah, that's that kind of guy. I mean, and so he and those kind of guys, much like their 7'1" guy that has crazy, you know, good timing, and he was doing the same thing to our guards. Like you could see there was so many times where they probed into it and they got within about 10 feet and they're like, oh, well, no, I guess I'm not doing that because he's there. And then they try it again and be like, no, he's still there. And that's what Jalen Williams does. But because he doesn't have that pure just jump through the rafters, send everything into the bleachers, he does it with timing. And it has this almost the same exact effect.
Oh, it has a better effect because if you block a guy's shot, they don't get a foul.
Yeah, they're even more worried about it.
Yeah, because I mean, you're gonna get a foul, you're gonna get your team in the bonus, you're gonna get guys penetrating the rim, they get in foul trouble, all that stuff. There's no loose ball involved for you to recover, for someone to recover. It's just that's the end of the play. Like it ends offensive possessions in the worst possible way for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're on offense and you end up with a foul and giving the ball to the other team. And he does it 3 or 4 times every game. And at this point, Bruce Pearl talked about it before the game. At this point, coaches are being like, you can't just go in there. You can't do that. Like you can't do, and now it's in the head. I think it's a huge part of, it's not like the biggest part, but I do think it's worth noting, the effect that has on the game, not just because of the play itself, but having other players at this point, they're thinking about it, and it just takes you out of what you want to do. You're like, I got to be worried about this freaking guy that's always sliding in front of people.
Well, and what a lot of point guards do, is when they're, I mean, even Note does this, when they dribble in and they get their man on their hip, they're watching that big man to see if he comes over, and if he doesn't, they try to make the layup or the floater, and if he does, they drive hard they drive even harder like they're going to try to make that layup to suck him over, and then that's when they kick to the corner or try to drop it off. And there's multiple times where, one of the tools in a guard's toolkit is the ability to be able to drive and get a little out of control, but when you're kind of going for the pass, you're just trying to draw people, and he'll take that. I mean, a lot of times those guys weren't going to score. They were jumping to pass, and they did pass. Like a lot of times he took away. I mean, I don't think they actually shot it, but where they were making a good pass to the corner or even to the paint, and it's too late. You just drew a charge. You know what I mean? And so it takes away both the scoring aspect and the assist aspect of those guys trying to draw that big man over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I would. This might sound like an overstatement, and I'm sure this isn't true, but I think Jalen Williams is as good at taking charges as anyone I've ever seen playing college basketball.
I think so. He's got a real knack for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know, like, because I know they say he leads the team always and stuff. I'll be like, does he lead the country? and charges drawn? I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna report back. Like,
It'd be surprising if he didn't. I mean, but he
it's
might not. There
might be some guard somewhere that does, but it seems like a ridiculous amount of charges to draw. And he uses that at super opportune moments too. That's the other thing. Is that's crazy.
It's become a thing where it actually jazzes the crowd up because when it's at home, when you're at home, it's like his calling card or something, and it actually normally a charge getting drawn isn't like, it's like good, but this turns into like where it's like a dunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Speaking of a dunk, did you notice? It was hard to see because like the lights went out and the crowd stormed, but at the end there when Devo dunked that, and I don't know why that Auburn player ran down there, like it was over, and all he did was manage to let Devo like swing his crotch into his face.
Yeah.
And then for 1 second he got real upset. Maybe he got upset about, like, maybe he thought it was unsportsmanlike to go for the dunk instead of just dribbling the ball out. But it's like, dude, you're unranked and you're the number 1 team in the country.
By the way, not only are you unranked, you're disrespected. Like, okay, let's say this, because we talked about this last time.
I thought they'd be ranked for sure.
I thought they'd be. It is absurd that they're not ranked. And dude, I mean, I'm sure
we should have done that. You should have gotten a list of the top 25 teams records, because I guarantee you about 15 of them aren't as good as Arkansas.
Unbelievable. Dude, okay, I know we said we will be ranked next week. I'm fairly certain we're going to be ranked.
Better be now, yeah.
I mean, obviously we have to play another game before the rankings come out, so
and it's tough, dude.
Alabama coming off this game,
like Alabama can be the best team in the country at like any given night. They're the weirdest, most schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
We might beat them. We might beat the crap out of them, but they might beat the crap out of us. Like, they are. You just never know what team's going to show up with them.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that Arkansas felt disrespected. There's no doubt that they thought they should have been ranked at this point. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, and
then Auburn comes out and dances on our logo. Well, it's funny that Musselman brought that up in the post game interview. And
I know
they're using all that stuff, man. Disrespected, not ranked, dancing on our logo. You dance on our logo before the game, I might bounce this ball off the floor at the end of the game and dunk it. Might alley-oop to myself and dunk. That might just happen if you do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't when the crowd stormed the court. I know that you're not supposed to do that. That probably cost the university $100,000 or something like that. But I wasn't sure, because I mean, it does suck to fight a game like that, and then the guy dunks, and like then people are just bumping you all around. You're already pissed off, and like there's just, I mean, it's and like I said, I agree with, like, I think Coach K said there could be some danger there. Like, you never know what that many people's energy is going to do, and one idiot could take a swing at somebody or something, and or at least provoke somebody. So I was like not sure how Muss was going to feel. Like, he was going to be like, man, I wish we had, but like, he looked like he was liking it.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like, he didn't look like he minded.
No, and I don't mind either. Like, I don't like it if you storm the court after every time you beat a ranked team or something like that. But dude, if you feel disrespected and you get the number 1 team in the country coming into your house, you might have to storm the floor if you win. Like that. I mean, those, like, there's like the student section was just, I mean, they were in it. Did they sit down?
I don't know.
I don't know if anyone sat down that whole game. That was like, I think they just stood up the whole time.
How does this work where they get a record? Like, doesn't the place just fit so many people? Yeah,
I know. Like it's not the first sellout ever. Like, what are you talking about? Like, they let more people in to stand. Maybe so. Maybe they crammed more people in the student section.
Well, that's what I mean. It must be that, huh? It must be that, like, that's the number comes from the turnstile, because they know how many seats are in there and how many ticketed seats are in there. But then the wild card is the student section, because those aren't ticketed seats.
Yeah.
And they can just cram them in there. So I guess that's,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
guess
four more people went through the turnstile or something like that.
I guess I know this, dude. I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but just watching on TV, you know, I don't know if Bud Walton Arena, when it's like that, is the hardest place to play in the country, but I don't know how there can be a harder place to play.
Yeah.
Like, how can it be harder? Like, I mean, it's that it could be as hard, maybe, but that's you couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear anything on the TV.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, I watched them play Georgia, and and Georgia, I mean, doesn't have as much to play for as the Hogs, but they had Auburn on the ropes at home with a pretty good crowd, and it was energy. I mean, there was energy there, but it wasn't like that, and it
No,
certainly wasn't like that from the jump. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that was all game long, dude. That it never
Mhm.
let up.
It did feel like it felt like, because the weird thing about college basketball is you don't get home playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get that thing. You know what I mean? Whenever you play in the tournament, it's half your fans, half their fans. It's actually more like a third your fans, a third their fans, and a third just fans of March Madness.
Randos, yeah.
Well, like we've gone to March Madness before, and it's like we weren't fans of any of the teams we went and saw. We just watched 4 different games that were good games, and so you don't get that in college, but it felt more like the way home NBA playoff games feel.
Yeah, it felt even crazier than that. I mean, NBA arenas don't even get like that.
I don't know. I went to the
I mean, I went to a game 5 Suns Spurs playoff game back in the day, and I sat down. I mean, at some points.
I went to game 5, the pivotal, it was tied 2-2, game 5 of the first LeBron in Miami against the Mavericks with Dirk Nowitzki, and so it was tied 2-2, and those fans did not sit down. It was insane. I mean, and like I said, I was one of the people that was more there just because I'm a fan of basketball. But it was crazy. Like, they were hoarse screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the decibels in there sounded crazy. I mean, it was just a wave and stuff. It's all white out. I mean, like, it's got to be a crazy place to walk into, for sure, and a crazy place if they're cheering for you. That's just nuts, man. But also, good on the Razorback fans. I mean, if you were going to go, I guess you took that job seriously. If you're like, if I'm going to be one of the guys that's going to be in the seats, I got to do my part, and I would say you did, because that was nuts, and they were probably you making everything difficult, man. They can't communicate. They're blowing whistles. They can't hear them. Like, it was great. Well, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than
that was awesome.
It was awesome, man. I mean, that's it. That game, because okay, do you think there's maybe we'll close with this? Do you think there's any doubt that's the best team we played this year?
No, I think they're the best. Yeah. I think Auburn is a weak number 1. And by that, I don't mean to be disrespectful. Like, I think they're a really, really good team. But sometimes you have these years where Duke has 3 NBA players on their team, or Kentucky has 5 NBA players on their team. Mm-hmm. And you get these teams that are 28-0 or something like that, or like Gonzaga, where they're like 32-0. And they're just juggernauts and they're beating everybody by 20. That's not what this Auburn team is. They're not that Goliath. I actually did think that we had a good chance to win, not the whole game. Like, when I was seeing us get out rebounded and stuff, I thought we were going to lose in regulation. And then when we went to overtime, I didn't know what to do, but I thought our legs were probably going to go, and they had more rest than we did. And I didn't like our chances at the end there. So I'm actually kind of surprised we won in the way we did. I thought if we won, it would be more like the fans would get into it. We'd make a couple of threes in the final 10 minutes, and we'd get like an 8 or 10 point lead and hold on to it. I thought that would be the way we'd win, and the crowd would push us over. But I didn't think we'd win in that close of a scrappy game at the end when all of our guys had to play that hard and it was that tight of a rotation. But like I said, no disrespect to Auburn. I don't think they're a really, really dominant number one.
But they're the best team we've played so far.
But they're definitely the best team we've played. I don't even know if Auburn's better than Kentucky right now.
And here's the thing. I think even what you're saying is they very well might be the best team in the country. You're just saying that there's a ton of parity, and that is not there. It's not that number one where it's number one and then this huge gap.
I think it's reflected in everybody's records too. Yeah. There are a lot of teams piled up with like 6 losses. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean that's always the way it is a little bit, but sometimes you get those where it's like the top 8 and everybody else, and you have Baylor.
I think some of that is the transfer portal. I just don't. Yeah. I just think that like basketball, college basketball might just have more parity going forward because of the transfer portal. I don't know if you can just stack up all these freshmen and do that when another guy can just go and like get a collection of 5th-year seniors that want to like assemble a super team or whatever. Yeah, and everybody can do. They got all these. Everyone's shuffling their hands. I do think it's made it to where it's more difficult than if you're just Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, and you have the top 3 recruiting classes every year, bam, 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 bam. And those guys have to stay there for 4 years. And if they transfer, they have to sit out for a year. With all of that gone, it does seem like it's been like, well, games are going to be super competitive, which in that sense is good for college basketball because it is better when there's tons of parity.
It's going to make it really hard on the committee to choose. And a lot of teams that are very close are going to get peeled away. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be a heartbreak for some people, which is why fingers crossed Arkansas can still go in there. I mean, we still need to win at least, we don't, I don't know. What do you think? How many losses can we afford without starting to get scary again?
So we're 19-5. Let's see, how many games do we have left? I think so we have 7 games left. I mean, honestly, you could probably go. I mean, if you went 4 and you go 4-3, and I think you're safely in.
Probably.
That you're not. I mean, if you're gonna go, if you're 23-8, you're in. In the SEC, you're in.
Yeah. Especially like you said, you want to stay in that top tier because, like I said, you don't want to be where the guys, all the SEC teams under us are, where they are all piled up.
Yeah, with
similar records. You want to be at least right now. We're just we're 3rd, right, and we're separating every win. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it does seem like that is the new normal, maybe, because, like I said, it feels like in the past for like the decade of the one and done guys, you'd have all of us teams that were like trying to battle each other to get into the tournament, but then you'd have the top 10 teams, and it would be like Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Baylor, Gonzaga, Kentucky, and they'd all have like no losses or like 2 to 3 losses. And this year it's not quite so clear cut. I mean, you
had Auburn with 1 loss, you got Gonzaga with 2 losses. It's kind of how it goes. I think Duke lost tonight, right? So I mean that's wild. Did I just make that up? Or did they lose last night?
I wasn't paying attention.
They lost. Sorry, last night, not tonight. So Duke, who was 19-3, played unranked Virginia, who was 14-9. Virginia beat them. So that there is some of that going on, and that's the thing you got to be careful about is that Arkansas is rolling, and you want to keep it going and stuff. But I mean, every game is, especially this stretch. So here's the schedule going forward. So we have 7 games left. 4 of them are on the road. So you have over half of them on the road. So you have at Alabama, at Missouri, home against Tennessee, at Florida, home against Kentucky, home against LSU, at Tennessee. That's rough.
Mhm.
That is rough.
Well, especially because the bad part, I mean, it's not a negative, but the bad part about those teams piled up underneath you and you having kind of separated yourself a little bit. Now you've got a target on your back every game because you've moved into that category of in the
Oh,
top 3 and you're like separated a little bit with a couple of wins in conference. And the other teams like LSU and they're desperate. They
mhm.
have to win. Like they're playing for their season. And you got to keep that chip on your shoulder because you don't want to start to get that feeling of, well, as long as we win, you know, a couple of these next ones we're probably in. And these other teams are like, we have to win. We have no room for error, and they're more
Yeah.
desperate than you. So, yeah, hopefully we can keep it going.
Yeah, dude. What Muss has done is what he's done every year, and I mean, we've said this early on when things were not going well, and even though we weren't sure how it was going to look. By the way, this team looks like a completely different basketball team than it did 2 months ago.
Mhm.
I mean, they're so much better than they were in every way. They're so much better.
Well, because they're not confused. That's the main
No, they
thing.
know exactly what it is they're trying to do.
They figured out what they want, what works for them, what's the best thing. They've all, you can tell, mentally agreed. Yeah, this is our best path forward, and they're bought into it. Whereas from game 7 till 11, they were just every time they caught the ball, it was like, what are we supposed to be doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's the point
And
guard?
that, and that and that's the thing about Mustad. Every year it's that way, where Mustard's teams are always better later. They always are, he's always had these transfers and stuff, and so it's always kind of been the same sort of process. But I mean, props to Muss, man. I mean, he does figure it out, and he figured it out again because right now Arkansas looks like a team that could beat anyone in the country. That's what they look like. Not that they would beat anyone in the country, but they look like a team that if you went to play them, no matter who you are, you would be like, we better show up because this team could beat us.
Especially
And
like on a neutral floor.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I like their chances. I mean, obviously they just beat the number 1 team in the country, so I like their chances against anybody.
that's right. Yeah. So props to Muss, and props to the team for having him come up with a plan and them all buying in, because it did take some guys sacrificing some stuff, and guys like Likes having to be different than he's ever been. Amude being different. Everyone is buying into this thing, and yeah, it's a fun thing to watch right now, and hopefully
Yeah, and
it continues to be a fun thing to watch on Saturday against Alabama.
yep, I mean, there's still injury is my biggest concern. Like, there's just so many. They're so tight of a rotation. They don't have any room for error. But I hesitate to even utter it. But tonight, like, I haven't felt like this team is, you know, anything like a Elite Eight or Final Four team. They just haven't felt like that all year. I mean, I think it's partially that when you think of an Final Four team, you think about threes dropping and stuff. You think
Yeah,
about shooters and this team is so. I mean, I guess if any, the only thing is that they do remind me of like one of those Marquette teams or VCU teams that like went deep into the tournament a decade ago, where it was ugly. Their games ended in the 40s all the
mm-hmm.
time, which ours aren't doing that, but it's just scrappy. But this, now that they've beat Auburn, and I'm like, I still think it's the same thing we've said, that they're going to be in close games and every game is going to come down to a few moments, but they are capable of winning any game that's thrown at them. So they can win a couple of games in the tournament.
It's the old adage, man. Defense travels, and that doesn't mean just that you can play it on the road. It does mean that, and that you can play it in tournaments. It does mean that. It means that you can, but what it means is you can always play it. You
Yep.
don't got to be hot. You don't got to be anything. Like you can play defense. And right now, Arkansas isn't good at defense. They're not great at defense. from what I can tell, watching a lot of college basketball, Arkansas is elite at defense. The last 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you know me and Jake, you know that the only thing that we could not tolerate, and I would hate more than anything in the world, is if Arkansas was good, but their problem was they were sloppy and lazy and crappy at defense. That's not the one thing I can't, like. I can tolerate you not being able to put the ball in the hole. I can't stand it when their team just like, well, they're just not good defensively. That would bug me to death. And
well, I'd way rather have a gritty, tough defensive team. Even, I mean, regardless of even almost winning, like, I'd rather be a fan of, this is a weird but like the Memphis Grizzlies from back when they had a few years ago when they were in the tournament and they were just like, I mean, not in the tournament, in the playoffs, versus the Houston Rockets a few years ago with Mike. Like, I'd rather be a fan of a gritty, hard-nosed, play balls to the wall team than a finesse, soft team that that scores a lot of points.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. And that's one of the things I love about Eric Musselman is that since he got here, he does sort of have his philosophy definitely is, if you don't play defense, you don't play.
Yeah.
And I like that about him.
What I'd really like to be is a fan of a team that's hard-nosed, gritty, balls to the wall, and has a lot of like shooters.
Well,
but that's how you win a national championship.
Are you talking about the 90? You're talking about the 94 Razorbacks? That's the team you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
40 minutes of hell, but also like shoot the crap out of the ball.
I'm talking about the 96 Bulls.
Yeah, there you go. So. All right, man. Well, awesome, exciting. Woo pig, rank Arkansas. All you bastards out there that don't want to do your job right, go ahead and rank them when you get the chance. And I'll see you on Saturday.
All right, man.
All right,
see you.